Hi there folks. In this video we're going to have a look at some Federal 22 long rifle ammunition. This is Federal Champion, the 714 load, and it's a 22 long rifle 40 grain solid, so basically a standard velocity load, kind of a target shooting load. Now before I get any further into it, this is not ammunition which is really designed or intended for use in semi-autos. So if you're feeding a semi-auto rifle, this is probably, or a semi-auto pistol, this is probably not the ammunition you want, because most of those are set up to work with high velocity ammo. But if you're shooting it out of a bolt action or single shot or revolver or whatever, you may like this stuff quite well. Anyway, let's open up the box and we'll show you what's inside. It's got the usual 50 round plastic tray that Federal uses, and the rounds of course are brass cased as usual. Got the Federal F head stamp, and we've got a 40 grain round nose bullet. It's not plated, it's coated with a little bit of wax as a lubricant. So solid round nose bullet there, very typical sort of standard target shooting bullet. And these things are rated by Federal for 1,080 feet per second. Now if we compare this stuff to Federal Gold Medal ammunition, which is their 711 load, you will note that it is quite similar in appearance to the Champion stuff. I have been told, or I have been led to believe by reading various things, that the two loads, this Gold Medal and this Federal Champion stuff, are essentially the same ammunition, except when a lot of ammunition is not sufficiently accurate to qualify as being Federal Gold Medal, it may end up in one of these boxes and be sold as this 714 load. So this is quite a bit cheaper to purchase than the Federal Gold Medal. All you have to do is check up on some of your local prices and you'll see that there's quite a large difference in the price between this stuff and this stuff. So if you're going to be shooting an important match or something, you may want to spring for this, but you may find that this stuff is not bad for practice. You may get the occasional flyer that you will not get out of the Gold Medal, and that's why you're paying the difference between the two. Anyway, we're going to take some of this stuff out to the range, and I'm going to try it out in my bolt action, a Norinco NS522, which is one of my more accurate 22 bolt action rifles. Every time that I use that rifle for accuracy testing, I seem to get a comment from somebody about how I should be using something other than a Norinco because they don't think that Norincos are accurate. Well, some Norincos are probably less than ideal, but the NS522 is a very accurate rifle, and it will keep up with rifles that cost 5 times as much basically. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it has an excellent hammer forged barrel on it, and if I do my part, that rifle is very accurate, and I would, there's no excuses from the rifle's end of things. Anyway, we're going to go out and we're going to try this at the range at 50 yards, and we're going to push it out to 100 as well, which is probably a little far for standard velocity ammunition, but we'll give it a try at any rate. Guess I'll make one more comment about the price of this stuff. I just checked online, and here in Canada there's one of the bigger retailers have this stuff for just under $4 a box at the moment. I kind of got lucky and I purchased mine. I've had it probably a couple of years. Got it for, I believe, right around the $3 per box mark, which was a heck of a deal at the time because we were just coming out of that ammo shortage foolishness that was going on. If you are in the US, of course, you can find it for cheaper because, American prices are almost always better on that stuff. Anyway, we're going to head out to the range and see what this stuff will do. So here's a 50-yard group with the Federal Champion standard velocity ammunition, and we have 10 shots in 7/8 of an inch, and 9 of those are in a 1/2 inch, so pretty good shooting stuff. This is a 10-round group with the Federal Champion standard velocity ammunition, once again out of the Norinco NS522. This is 100 yards, and got kind of a funny thing going on here. We've got 8 shots here, 9 and 10, so that's a little strange, isn't it? These 8 are actually under an inch for those 8. The 9 are an inch and 7/8, yeah, just about center to center. And with that wild one, it brings us to 4 1/4 inches. So that's kind of interesting. We'll have to try that again to see if we get a flyer like that, whether that's the ammo or the shooter. Here's another attempt at 100 yards, 10 shots once again, and it looks like we've got, once again, about 4 inches extreme spread between those. Not quite as impressive a group as the last time. They're spread around a little bit more. We've got those 4, and then 6 more in a little cluster here that's under an inch, but overall, not a great group. Not horrible either for a 22 at 100 yards. And by the way, the point of aim for this was the center of this black aiming point up here. I didn't adjust the sights over the 50-yard setting other than to change the parallax on the scope. So we've got a drop of right around 6.5 inches or so from the 50-yard 0 to the 100-yard. Let's have a look at the chronograph readings for this Federal 714 22 long rifle, 40 grain solid standard velocity ammo. And this is out of the Norinco NS522. Chronograph is approximately 8 feet in front of the muzzle. And we fired 10 shots. Our low, 1106. Highest velocity, 1143. For an average of 1126. Extreme spread of 37. Standard deviation, pretty good, 13. And here are the individual 10 shots. And these were fired through a barrel which had previously fired a bunch of this ammo, so it should be fairly well conditioned to this particular load, this particular round. There we go. Alright, we're back from the range, and just a few final thoughts on the performance of this ammunition. I thought it was interesting to note that the NS522 gave slightly higher velocities than the specified ones. The specs called for 1,080 feet per second, and we got 1,126, so that's 46 feet per second faster than the spec. That doesn't really surprise me because I believe the NS522 has a fairly tight bore on it, which would tend to give a little more pressure and therefore a little more velocity than a standard sort of non-target sized barrel. Accuracy was pretty darn good at 50 yards from that load. You will note that we did have a flyer out of that 10-shot group, and that's kind of to be expected from the bargain sort of nature of this ammunition. Once again, if you were shooting the gold medal, you probably wouldn't have that flyer. When we got back to 100 yards, the performance did suffer a little bit, but 22 long rifle isn't normally used at 100 yards for most purposes. I like to mess around with it at 100 yards just for fun, but there aren't really a lot of practical applications for shooting 22 long rifle at 100 yards. Anyway, overall, I was fairly pleased with the ammunition for the price point. It's basically better than average ammunition at a kind of a plinking grade price. So that's pretty good. If you like to run bolt actions or single shots, I think you'd be pretty happy with this stuff. If you keep it inside of 50 yards, you'll find that it's pretty good stuff. Anyway, that's my look at the Federal 714 load. Hope you enjoyed it. Please give me a rating, and if you want to, a comment. That always helps keep the videos afloat. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you in the next one.